I am going to start admitting folks in. Hello everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being early, if not on time. We're just admitting folks in and we'll start at 7:02. Okay, I think folks are still slowly streaming in, but thank you again once again for everyone for your time. So we'll start right now. I hope everyone has had your dinner. I know you're having a dinner. Thank you for spending your time with us this evening. We are Better.SG, Singapore's largest tech for good charity, and we're having this AI/ML mentorship session with mentors sharing about AI/ML. This program is enabled by Meta. And right now I'll hand over to Vincent, who's going to run us through some housekeeping before introducing our speakers.
Thank you, Sydney, and thank you everyone for taking your time tonight. Just want to remind you to rename you in the participant list to mentee-your name so we can identify your participation. Just as a reminder, you need to participate 3 times to these sessions to complete the program. Today joining us is Randy and Abhjit. Little change of plan initially, as the initial speakers couldn't make it, but Randy and Abhjit very kindly stepped in, so thank you for that. Today we're going to start with Randy presenting about prototyping with GenAI, and that's going to be followed by Abhjit showing about data science AI/ML modeling. Each slot is 20 minutes each, and we'll take questions at the end for 5 to 10 minutes. Feel free to put your questions on the chat as well. So without further ado, I'll leave it to Randy to start this session. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be the first one to go. So good evening, everyone. My name is Randy. I've been sharing my session prototyping with GenAI for you guys today. little bit about myself. My name is Randy. I already mentioned earlier, I'm a lecturer from James Cook University. I won't bore you with all my credentials. If you are keen, you can scan the barcode to my LinkedIn. You can find all my stuff there. How the presentation is going to be structured is I'm going to run through a little bit of history, just some snippets of my journey in this industry so far, and how you can see that I sort of very tangled with products and prototyping. And in my current capacity, my job scope, my roles, how do I use Gen AI for prototyping? Some of the examples, if given time, if we have time, I run through a couple of examples just to show how things works. Okay. You have my email address. Feel free to hit me out if you have any questions. Okay, the journey so far. Okay, so I started my career about 21 years ago. They're all pictures. I seldom have slides, words in my slides, so pardon me. So my first job is with one of the telecom operators. My main job is to look at value-added services. Basically, in the very old days, you have WAP. That's way before you have HTML on your phone. That was before Apple. That was before iPhone. So we're trying to test out different WAP sites and services. So I'll go around and borrow different phones and try them out. That was my first job. Okay. Subsequently, I went on to take a year in with GovTech. That back then was called IDA, and I was exploring. We were exploring the various different kind of QR codes or 2D barcodes. We haven't really fixed that we are going to use QR code. We were exploring like, oh, there are so many different type of barcodes that are being used in Japan, and how we're going to bring that back to Singapore. Then I moved on to still in the telecom industry, but focus on SMS. Okay, SMS itself, stuff like your OTP. I work with the vendors and implementing OTPs or your marketing messages. Somewhere around 2011 or 10, I went on to do teaching. That was when I hopped on to be a full-time lecturer, first in the Poly. So I was with Republic Poly for a year. Subsequently, I went on part-time teaching for a few different institutes, polys and private uni. And 2017, I took the hop, went to Kangaroo Land, did my PhD. Okay, at the same time teaching there. And in 2020, I returned back to Singapore and continued to teach at James Cook University. So I've been teaching about 10 years in JCU. Okay, both Australia and Singapore. My role primarily is a lecturer, so I do teach subjects. Some of the subjects that I list down here are the subjects that I do teach. And a lot of times I find myself, I need some sort of quick prototype to sort of showcase some logics or showcase, some sort of concept to my students. So every time, every semester, every subject, even though done it before, I will still try to craft out something different and prototype something so that I can show it to the class. Secondary, I also take on as a student competition leader. So I do bring students to competitions, whether it's in Singapore, whether it's in, let's say, in the global competitions. And a lot of times those competitions require some sort of prototype. So we have some ideas and then we generate some ideas. We decided, okay, this how a solution might solve a problem. And then we sort of do a very simple prototype just to prove a concept, a POC. So once again, prototyping involved. I'm also the design sprint leader. So we do conduct a design sprint at JCU. Basically, it's like a mini hackathon. We run that every trimester with all the IT students. So in the design sprint, students are expected to go through the design thinking process, of which one of them is prototyping. Okay, so as a design sprint leaders, I work with the design sprint lecturers to craft out design challenge, as well as to assess the students based on their prototypes that they've designed. Last but not least, I'm also the ethics reviewer. So I review the ethics application that comes in for research, and that will require me to sort of understand. And sometimes I do use a bit of Gen AI to help me to sort of see how that fall in place, whether, according to the regulations, Gen AI can you help me sort of sort out and see whether this thing fits into the bill. So throughout, in my professional capacity, I do use, other than just teaching, AI and ML stuff, I actually actively sort of use them across my work, mostly in prototype. Small stuff, not big stuff, but they need to be done quick, fast, so that I can have time to sort of bring it out to class or to use it. So that brings me back to generative AI. So what exactly is generative AI? I'm pretty sure everybody or most people in this audience will sort of already know. So just put this across. Generative AI is any content that is generated by AI. So any content can be text, can be Word documents, can be pictures, can be movies, can be videos, can be audios. So the most, I would say most people will associate Gen AI or closest to you, where everybody uses most often, will be ChatGPT. That's kind of text-based generation. You send in a prompt and you get something back from the AI model. With the introduction of Gen AI, as I was doing my slides, I sort of recall back into how do I actually process my workflow? Back 20 years ago, or when I was studying my diploma or my degree, whenever there's a problem, the first thing that I do is to check the books. Okay, I go to the library, I borrow books, I look at how certain things runs in Java. That was my most reliable go-to source. Okay, and then internet came along. Okay, and it sort of become more and more trusted with more and more information being uploaded. Then my workflow shifted. Okay, I don't no longer go to the books because internet is easy access. I search on the internet. I Google for it. So everybody will have been gone through this sort of like Google stuff. And then with Gen AI, it's sort of a bit different, where I see myself pivot into, instead of just Google, I might ask ChatGPT. Okay, so that happened somewhere between the last 3-4 years when GPT is quite stable, quite good in conversing with you, and I see myself pivot into that. I sort of see the next stage is AI generation. Instead of a typical flow where, let's say, I need to create a program in Visual Studio Code, I will Google for the codes, or in this case, I'll ask ChatGPT, how do I create a binary search, for example? And I get a source code and I put it in. But in today's context, it's sort of, I don't really need the extra steps. It's sort of integrated into the base software that I'm using. For example, VS Code. I can just use Copilot or Gemini inside VS Code and say, generate a binary search algorithm, and it will be done there. So I can see sort of how things sort of change a way how we sort of use things. But generally, when we look at Gen AI, there are like a few different categories. I didn't list out all, but these are the few that I usually will touch on. So text generation, very common. You guys will probably use it. Image, and then design, because I do a lot of UI, UX. That's part of the design thinking process. That's something that I need to show students who are doing Android development. So design documents, and then obviously code as well. So this is not all the stuff that's out there, but just some of the stuff that I sort of came across, I use it, and sort of how I categorize them. Under image, you have Firefly, Midjourney, which is quite common and popular, one of the earlier pioneer for image generation. And then you have design, Canva and Figma, that allows you to do UI design of the screen. They have been there all along. It's not like something new with AI. It's just that now with Gen AI, you can give a prompt and they will give you back the screen. Okay. And then you have code, which is cursor and claw code, more specific into code area. Okay. And then you have those that are multimodal. Okay. They can span across a few different data type. ChatGPT, you can ask them for text. You can also ask them to generate an image. Okay, likewise for DeepSeek, Meta AI, and then Gemini and Copilot across all different fields. This list is adding on, and sometimes it can get a bit confusing, at least for me, because even under the same company, I would say, they will launch sort of different products across, and sometimes it's quite easy to get lost, like, oh, is this a Google product or is this part of Gemini, for example. With all this about codings and generations of codes, then it comes upon this term, vibe coding. I'm not too sure how many of you have heard of this. Vibe coding was sort of introduced early Feb 2025 this year, okay, by co-founder of OpenAI, and he sort of coined this term where you don't actually need to know or to actually understand codes to actually create a program. Of course, I don't think I would sort of fall into that vibe coding stage because I do sort of know the backend stuff. But I do see myself getting a lot more things done with the existence of AI in doing my coding development. So vibe coding, in case if someone doesn't really know the term, I'll flash it out here. I still have a bit of time. I just want to run through a couple of demo how I do things, and I'm not sure maybe those will be interesting for you. So when we talk about UI UX design, so I'm going to create a screen. Let's say, for example, this is Teach. This is by Google. So usually the first thing is we do paper prototype. Of course, we can draw it out. We get students to draw the examples, how the interface might look like. And then next, we're going to put it into a digital format. So you can use Figma, you can use Canva for that. If you have the paper prototype, you can actually upload that into as an image. But otherwise, you can also just give it a prompt. Okay, so I prepared a couple of prompts like this, build a minimum to do this list, let's say, just quite happy. And in this, you probably in Gen AI, the most important thing is actually the prompt. So the computer cannot guess your mind. You have to be very, very explicit what you want. Okay. And then you click generate design. Depending on us, sometimes it might take a while, but probably usually not take too long. Okay, so while waiting for this, okay, very similar software, you can also find that in Figma. So you can do that the same in Figma. And they will start to generate a UI preview for you. Okay, that's for UI design. So you have something like this. This is created for you. Okay, it's very good to showcase to your client, get stakeholders to come and test it. You can actually save this as a screen. Okay, download this as a screen. Okay, and then move on to the next step of prototyping, generating an app. So here I'm showing case Firebase Studio. I could actually upload the screen and put in the same stuff, same prompt, and ask it to generate AI. This will take a bit longer, okay? Because this is code generation. So Firebase Studio would generate all the necessary stuff required, all the files, all the requirements.txt. But this is so far on a web interface. And once it's done, you can actually test it out, okay? So they give you some summarize of the entire stuff that you need. And if you think you're all good to go, you just click prototype this app and it will take some time, okay? I don't really use Firebase Studio that often. I actually do use Cursor a little bit more. Okay, but I think because of time, I probably won't have time to showcase this, but let me just give a simple prompt example. Okay, from example, if I need to build a LLM with RAG retriever, okay, just to look at the latest vaping kind of instructions, I could put in a prompt like this. Okay, build a simple Python web project, get the information from here, okay, store the embeddings into Chroma, and then create a retrieval model, do a RAG, and then come out with, let's say, an interface. Click enter, and it will start building. Okay, it's sort of like magic taking place, okay, but it does help if you really know what you're doing. Okay, it doesn't help if you don't really know what show you're doing and you just try and test it. You probably spend more time trying to edit stuff than getting things that you want. Okay, so let's go back to see how our websites have been doing up. So still coding. And this is from Figma. Okay, so Figma. Okay, and then you can sort of shift this. So you can very quickly get something out. And that's required from the nature of the job. I try to get something out quickly, whether to demonstrate a concept or to put it into sort of use to showcase stakeholders. Okay. So while this is drafting out, I think I just want to conclude like with Gen AI, okay, you can do prototyping very fast, okay? But this is my personal opinion, okay? You really need to know what you're doing first, okay? Don't just jump in and say that you can do vibe coding and code something out. I don't think it's pretty at a stage where anyone can just vibe code anything, okay? So you still need a lot of foundations to be involved. This is more like an assistant. Take it as you have another teammate, and it will work really well for you. Okay, I've spoken to a few other professionals who feel that this is, really helping them a lot compared to what they've been using in the past. I think that's about my time. So I will end off my presentation.
Thank you so much, Andy. So it's definitely all about formulating your requirements the most precisely as possible, so you can get a good output. Just for reference, we shipped pretty recently a CRM for home-based coffee, entirely vibe coded in Lovable. It took us about 500 prompts to get to the production stage, but it's really amazing what you can do with it. And just to complete the list you've given, you have Lovable, you have Bolt, you have V0, Firebase Studio, like you've demoed, that are just perfect for vibe coding. So thank you, Randy, for the presentation. And I'm going to leave it to Abhjit now. So you can share your slide and start your run. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think, yeah, let me share my screen. And thanks for Andy sharing the beautiful GNAI stuff. And so let me know if it is my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is my name is Abhjit Roy. I'm actually working as an IT professional in a fintech for last 16, 17 years. Before that, before fintech, I was mainly on the working in an engineering firm, and then slowly build up my fintech areas while I was working in the UBS bank. And then since then it is going on. Right now, I'm working in a company called FIS Global, which is more on a trade derivatives and securities markets, the software products being used by all the leading banks across Singapore and across the globe. So I mean, you can go to my LinkedIn and feel free to connect. So and I can see myself what I'm doing right now, and just a brief. And so basically, what I'm trying to explaining it today's call is more on a from the basics understanding of if someone is a new starter. So how this AI machine learning things are coming into the picture, and how it can be, because there are many cases that some people will be interested more on technical stuff, how actually at a root level the basic things are actually happening, and then mainly on the data analytics and stuff like that. And so that's the overall. So what I'm actually doing as part of the mentorship program is trying to teach more on Python, and then on top of that Python, maybe a few sessions. Then when going into more on a data analysis, then how we need to massaging the data, then exploratory data analytics, then we need to also have kind of a understanding the current data by supervised learning or unsupervised learning, and then modeling the data, and then reinforcement, whatever the data we learn from there, and then modeling the data, and also the fine tuning of the data. So that's the overall thing, which how the data can be utilized. So along the way, there are uh, data analytics part that needs to be considered. So you need to have a big basic understanding of statistics as well. Not really too much in depth, but it's more on a. So let's, for example, a very typical example, like Singapore HDB prices, right? How the prices been there for last 10, 15 years, and how we are actually predicting the data for another 10, 5 year, next year, next 5 years, how the data will be look like, and what kind of area region wise. So there are lots of plenty of informations are actually there to play around with it. Singapore government also published a lots of data in terms of anyone want be interested to, so they can actually use those data as well. So the data is very important. So it's not all data that will be kind of perfect. So the massaging the data is actually a topmost priority for before you start any analysis of the data. So this is how the overall the data versus the information. So informations can be scattered anywhere, but how you actually looking at the data, interpreting the data, and do a kind of a chart and analyzing the data. So I've been so in my current role right now is along with the fintech, I also been very much involved into Power BI reporting. So I have a multiple different source of data being used, analyzing the data in the current job scope, and then do some prediction, and also, like for example, which month of around which month the data will be more, we will expect more high volumes of market data and stuff like that. So those kind of analysis can be done, whether it is a quarterly or bi-yearly. So those kind of analysis will be much easier when you have proper data to analyze. So this is one of the examples which I have given just now. So I have been using Microsoft Power BI quite heavily on that part. And also uh, the so ba- to start with, right? So I mean, basic nowadays there are two, Python and R. Mainly R is used more on an engineering firms, and Python is in general being used in many places. So you also, as a starter, you can actually do it by yourself. Just have a computer and you download Google Colab, or it's online, or Anaconda, or Jupyter Notebook. So you can start doing by yourself, just having an internet connection and do that. So what I'm going through with my mentees, like the very basic understanding of how the Python works, not into the really go into a depth of that, because today now the market is like there are plenty of languages are in the market, and even Chat GPT and other things can give you the Python code. So you do not need to go to too much of detail of that, but at least need to understand a very basics of how Python works, to understand how the AI machine learning will actually work, right? So that's the basic main funda of the Python to you need to know. And then once you are there, then we'll start with the data structure on the in the Python, how the indexing, slicing methods, tuples, then what is the difference between tuples and list, dictionaries, then how the loops and breaks. So these are very basic fundamentals of the computer programming. So once it is there, then go to the some statistical data analysis. They did it how we can see a data sets is basically an Excel, right? So data set is nothing but rows and columns, right? So then after that, once we have that data, so there could be a data might be, some of the data might be missing. So how do you interpret those data? So there are some cases to we average out the data. You mean the arithmetic means, and stuff like that. So because some of the analysis it cannot be done, which is a non-nullable field, right? So you need to make sure that you put in the data. So Python has a good amount of prototypes which are been written by somebody else, and we can utilize that and can fill those datas and to make your data more robust and more useful. So massaging the data, as I mentioned, I think it's very important. Then then after that we can do the different kinds of plottings. I mean, you might have very familiar with the Excel. So blocks plot, convergence, correlation coefficients, and those things can be done in the Python. So in terms of the common libraries that is used in the Python is the NumPy, SciPy, MATLAB, Pandas, and scikit-learn. So I think these are every of those libraries have their own specific areas, like NumPy handling multidimensional arrays, SciPy is a scientific computational, Matplotlib is more on a data visualization like graphs and other things. Pandas is more on handling the tabular format of the data, and scikit-learn is more on the machine learning. So these are the common tools and libraries being used in Python. And then after that, so these are actually a bit of a descriptive. I'm not going into too much of details on that part. And what is actually, once you are done with the data, right, so what are the different analytics which comes into picture? So descriptive analytics is basically what has actually happened. Diagnostic analysis, what events are actually happened. Then next is the predictive analytics, what will happen. And perspective, which action we should be taken to achieve the objective or the goal that which we are looking at. And then fifth is more on an artificial intelligence, which is more on an question and answer. So it's basically all the data we are actually learning and feeding into the system, and we help the system to answer the questions that which coming to you. That's more on an artificial intelligence part, right? So that's how the data will be looking at it. So so when with different rules on the data, so there are different rules in the market. So one first very basic role is the business analysts. So it's basically more on a who is actually working with the daily with the business, and in interface between the IT and the business is business analysts. What is the requirement? And then after that, data analysis analysts, so is more on a playing the data areas. Then data engineering is more on a data massaging this data and other things. Then data scientists is more on a going into more on a machine learning and predictive analytics, is more on a scientific part of that. So so these are the different roles. Then after that, in the Python, as I mentioned earlier, different logarithms and all the data loading, then different histogram, bar graph, line plot, box plot, heat map, and different other visualizations techniques being used to identify if the what kind of skewed data it is, to understanding the machine learning part of that. So then it comes to so it's a very basic level of what is the difference between AI, machine learning, and data science. So every aspects we have different job scopes and other things. It depends on what exactly you are comfortable with, where you are comfortable with. So different areas we have the different jobs in the market, and it will keep on evolving into those areas. So at the end, just understand that AI cannot take away our jobs. It's basically they need to take human input to make AI more success, right? So we really need that human presence to work on that to make the AI successful. So it's not that uh, it take away our jobs. So there are different areas that I think you have been going into different mentorship programs. You will actually know different areas as well. So I'm not going into the details of that. So feel free, you can ask any questions later. Then, as I mentioned, the more on the data is the data collection, data cleansing, then the modeling of the data, then how do we need to predict the data, visualizing the data and the inside of the data. That's more on a data science part of that, right? So next is the exploratory data analysis. Now once we have the data in place, so we need to do a sanity variant, univariate analysis, bivariant analysis. This is more on a statistical names, but it is being used heavily in the AI machine learning. Missing value treatment, as I mentioned, that some of the data might be a null data, but when you get an Excel format or the CSV files, you will see that the data are missing. So how will you interpret that data to make sure that you can actually do analysis using that data? So there are techniques which has been used for missing value treatment, and then we will come up with the uh, bar chart, graph chart, and all. We need to see outliner and the detection. So if this is an outliner, there are few data will be there, you know, more or less you will see that 90% of the data will be within a range, but some of the data may be a very weird, and it makes no sense what kind of data it is. So length of a human, let's say for example 5 feet 6 inch or something like that, but some length has been given at 20 feet, which is an obsolete, right? So these are the outliners. So we need to make sure that outliners needs to be ignored, and before we treat the data as a normal, otherwise your average, mean, and everything will be very difficult to predict. So more prediction. So data analysis is very important to analyze your data before we actually feed into the system. So this is a quite I mean statistical methods being used quite heavily into that. So then next come with the supervised learning, the classification, how the supervised learning, and so you have a set of data and you are actually training another set of data by using a supervised learning method, and so that you know that the trained data can analyze the future question and answers to give you more predicted results. So so this is one of the technique. Next is decision tree classifications of the different methods of pruning, how this, and regression trees and stuff like that. Then comes with the unsupervised learning. So it is a bit tricky. You need to go to a bit details of that. Okay, what does K means, clustering, hierarchical clustering, and stuff like that. So when more and more you'll go, you'll see a bit difficult into your, but yeah, you will find challenging to know how the machine learning actually works and runs at the back end. Then the model evaluation, so feature engineering, cross validation, oversampling and or undersampling, regularization, so these are very important. Then machine learning pipelines and hyperparameter tuning. So this tuning also is very important to any randomizing the data, understanding the how the parameters can be utilized and fine tune the data to make sure that you can predict more comprehensive way. So having said that, so what are the different frameworks and the tools and techniques been used? So based on that, the area you are comfortable with, you can go along with yourself. As I mentioned earlier, the data science tools Python are heavily used. You need to know a bit of SQL to data in the query in the database. Tableau and Power BI, they are more reporting tools. Pandas, as I said, it is part of the Python as well. Then AI and machine learning frameworks, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Scikit-learn. Then future trends, as in the previous Randy has mentioned, the generative AI. Then explainable AI is also coming in. AI in the healthcare, financials, education. He's rightly said that, right? Edge AI, then Internet of Things. So, what are the different challenges that which you're actually facing? It's more on the data privacy, biasness of the fairness of the data, and also the when the machine learning anything you're running, you need to have a very high computational system which can run your system, right? Like Chat GPT, at the back end, it is a very high resource incentive, right? So, and then how this is interpretability. So then different career paths that is there. So there are different every areas have their different paths: machine learning, engineering, data science, research, business intelligence, AI data analytics, big data, AI product manager, and different areas that which as well. So, and once you have a basic understanding of machine learning, then you can go to an advanced level of deep learning, which is more on a neural networks, recurrent, and the natural NLP, which is very commonly used today, natural language processing, then computer vision and stuff like that. So here comes my end of the the coverage. So over to the Better.SG team, and happy to take the questions if there is anything.
Thank you very much, Abhijit. And I think it's very interesting that you presented more on the machine learning and statistics side, because right now all the hype is about Gen AI, but actually all the rest is heavily used in industry. And there's a quote that I like about it, which say that it's not because you have a Gen AI hammer that every problem is a nail. And that's really the thing. So I'm going to ask if anyone has questions. You can either raise your hand or put your questions in the chat. But I'm going to start with one quick question for you, Abhijit.
Sure.
Can you give us an example, a concrete example of application of one of these machine learning techniques that you're applying today in what you're doing?
Okay, that's a very good question. So one of the example I've given you that every industries nowadays, whether it's a manufacturing or banking or any sector, they are actually tracking incident management. Let's say an example, like any incident that customer is facing, it's tracked by incident management. So while resolving an incident management, we have different layers of support teams. We call it as sometimes level 0, level 1, level 2. If we cannot resolve that, we go to the development team to resolve the problem. So what is today's world is happening, the level 0 support. Let's say for example, there are very basic support, like for example, I cannot access your website. So we actually today do not need a human to answer those kind of questions. So your incident management tool is analyzing your past incidents and most relevant 5 top incidents can in front of you, projecting the answers. So whether we are able to get those answers and see, try to, you can resolve those problems using those answers. So this is basically nothing but an AI is actually doing at the back end, analyzing all your tickets in the past tickets and identifying which is more suitable based on the keywords and stuff like that. So I think that's a very common being used across industries nowadays to eliminate the level 0, because Singapore market is very very niche market in terms of the resources. So they need the more high level technical resources rather than uh, manual work that can be generated by AI and giving as an answer to the customer. I think this is one of the very typical example which is in the today we are actually. I mean, we were seeing in the DBS bank as well as any kind of area, the chat GPT kind of answer you, try to answer your questions. But yeah, that's one of the answer which I can think of.
Thank you, Abhijit. One question for Randy. Randy, in your prototyping, you probably have some data issues or data visualization that you might want to kind of give a walkthrough about. So, can you give us some examples and how good result did you get in data visualization through these tools?
So when you talk about data visualization, are you talking about like graphs, that you get outputs,
For
or
example,
yeah?
would the Gen AI tools actually give good results when you just feed data and it outputs graph?
Based on my few projects, it really depends on, because it really ranges on the projects that you're doing, nature of the AI that you're using. Gen AI sort of usually is quite capable today. So if you give them a table, they'll be able to understand that this is a table and they'll be able to output accordingly based on the particular library. But of course, you have to specify the prompt correctly. So the prompt is the key to unlock what the potential is. Having said that, the prompt does certain things, and then once again, when the visualization comes out, if you want to make minor changes to HTMLs, the colors, the CSS, and the JavaScripts, if you are very clear in what you want to change, they will do it for you. Otherwise, you find yourself playing ping pong with the Gen AI, saying, okay, make this bigger. Oh, this is not what you want. You can change again. That will take you actually more time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just gonna give a little anecdote. I see in the guest list we have Wei Shun, and Wei Shun worked with me on one project where it was the beginning of Gen AI, and we were building RAG for financial documents. And typically, you have a lot of tables in these documents, but the AI is pretty bad at storing the tabular format in a vector database. So what we're doing is actually storing the data in CSV, but generating on the fly for each table a summary of what this table is about, and indexing as a vector the summary, and then retrieving the summary with a link to the actual data, and then reusing the data in the context. So it's really about giving the AI the context about what you feed it, and giving the right parameters for it to analyze it. So just gonna pause maybe 10 seconds to see if anyone wants to ask any questions to one of our mentors today. Don't be shy, feel free to unmute and let us know. So if we don't have many, we'll have one more for you, Abhijit. So you mentioned boosted trees in your presentation. Do you have any example of boosted tree utilization? Because I think generally that's one of the most easy to understand what actually boosted tree, what's the outcome of it.
So I mean, right now I have not I have not used it here in this current any projects as of now. So, but yeah, I mean, so what we can do is we can in the Python, what we can do is we can decision making trees that can be incorporated to find out your right decisions. So that's the more important part of the trees, that which actually needs to analyze your certain data, whether the data is moving into which direction. I think that those kind of things right now I don't have the right examples to in front of you, but I can probably find back to you later on that part if there is any.
Yeah, no worries. I really liked it because
Yes,
boosted tree are pretty efficient when you give it tabular
that's right.
data
That's right.
at figuring out, for example, feature importance.
Correct.
So if you take a population sample and you figure out that everyone is tall, and you feed it different parameters like food intake, weather, temperature, and all this,
Yes,
boosted tree will be very good at telling you actually, given the set of inputs that you give me and the output that you have,
that's right.
the output, 20% of it is because of the weather, 20% is because of the diet or this or that. So boosted trees are pretty good for that.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna close the session if there is no more questions. So I really want to thank Randy and Abhijit for your participation today. Super informative session. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna leave it to Singhi to talk about the next session.
Thank you, Vincent. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up the slide for next session. All right. So thank you again for everyone staying back all the way with us. For next session, it will be happening October 1st, same time. And the calendar invite would have gone out if not already, where more details will come. But the topic for this next session by Benedict Ong is structured outputs versus RAG, some of which we've talked about today. So we'll talk about it in more detail. And then also Hao Han Lo was going to talk about limits of AI, not alternative, I guess, but a different angle to this very popular technology. So otherwise, if not, there's no more questions from everyone. Thank you for staying back. Vincent, anything last to add?
There was one question, but I'll take it offline, so no worries, because it takes a bit of time to answer. But yeah, again, thank you, everyone, and see you on the 1st of October for the next one. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.